So this is episode 2 of our grammar with Mrs. Gillespie this week. So the first episode you watched on Monday, we went over the parts of speech. We talked about common nouns, we talked about proper nouns, we talked about verbs, and we talked about adjectives. I want us to kind of review what adjectives are again. So you should have already completed the essential question where you went through and wrote the answer to the question, but you tried to use as many adjectives as you could. Okay, so today what we're going to talk about, and there's not going to be an assignment with this yet. We're going to do the assignment on Wednesday. Okay, but if it's already posted, you can feel free to go ahead and start working on it. I will provide another video that goes with what the actual assignment is. But for the next assignment, we're going to talk about adjectives that compare. Now, we have talked about this already this year, so this should completely be a review. Okay, but I wanted to still go over it just in case it's not review or you forgot or you just need a little bit of a refresher course. So if you look over here, we've got adjectives that compare. So remember, adjectives can be used to describe a noun, right? So the woman had long hair. Now you know in your head that you're picturing a woman with long hair, not short hair, right? So however, we can also use adjectives to compare two or more nouns. Compare means to show how they might be different, right? So we can show how two things or more than two things can be different by using adjectives, okay? And when we do that, most of the time, we either add ER at the end of the word, at the end of the adjective, or EST at the end of the adjective. Now, with every rule, there are some outliers, right? There are some things that it doesn't work like that. We might use the words more or the most, like the most beautiful, that kind of thing. We wouldn't say beautifuler. But for right now, we're just focusing on adjectives that we can add ER and EST to. Okay, so ER we use to compare two nouns. So if there's only two things that we're comparing, we would just use ER at the end of the adjective. If we're comparing something that is more than two nouns, usually we do this if we're comparing one thing to like everything else. So if that's the case, then we would use EST at the end of the noun. Okay, so what you want to think about when you're trying to figure out what to write at the end of your noun is to think about how many nouns are being compared. Is it one to one or is it one to everything else? Okay, so that's what you should be thinking about when you're just trying to decide how exactly to write out an adjective that is being compared to something else. Okay, so here's some examples. So in this column I have the adjective that we start with. Then we have what we would write if we were comparing two nouns to each other, and then if we were comparing more than two nouns. Okay, so the first one is tall. If we're comparing two people, just two people against each other, right? One's taller than the other, we would use taller, ER, just to compare two nouns. If we were trying to say one person is tallest of everyone, if you're the tallest in your class, then we would write EST at the end, tallest, okay? High, okay, is the adjective. If you're comparing two nouns, it's higher, okay? Like let's say I was looking at two buildings, right? This building is higher than the other building, right? But if I want to talk about the highest building in Chicago, I would use EST. It is the highest building, right? Next one, last example, is large. The adjective is large, comparing two nouns, larger, right? And then if I'm saying it's the large, like it's out of all of them is the largest. Largest would be what I would use. Okay, so let's look at a couple of sentence examples. Carol is tall. Okay, so we don't know how she compares to everyone else, but we know that when we look at her, we think, oh, she is tall. Carol is taller than Renee. Now I know in my head that Carol is taller than the other person, Renee. So I know if I was to picture them in my head, I would picture Carol being a little bit taller or maybe a lot taller than Renee. Okay, Carol is the tallest girl. So now I'm picturing Carol, this entire group of people around Carol, but she's the tallest of them all. Okay, so I just want to kind of go over a review. I would suggest that if you don't do the activity that goes with this until Wednesday, that you go back through and watch this video again. It will still be there. So you can watch it again just to kind of get a refresher before you do the actual assignments. Okay? Have a great day. Bye, guys.